Yo guys, what's going on here? Bonzi Chun back at you in another video, and today we're not doing a deck profile, we're not playing any games. Pokemon American International starts tomorrow. Today's Thursday, so yeah, so it starts tomorrow. And today I'm going to go over 10 decks that I think will be played a lot at Nationals, and I think are strong contenders for winning the National Tournament. We're not going to go, these aren't in any particular order. I'm just going to go down this list right here that I have right in front of me. I've constructed all the decks on TCGO, and I have I have 60% of them completed. Some of these I have done before in previous videos. Check them out on there somewhere on the channel. First I'd like to say this: if you cannot beat if a deck cannot beat Drampa Garb or Espeon Garb, it has no business being played at Nats, because those are probably going to be the two. Those are, I believe, will be the two most played decks at Nationals this year. But going on off of that, we're going to start off with Bulu Vikavolt. This is a fairly new deck that's started to see a lot of play. It, of course, stars Tapu Bulu. The main attack you focus on here is Nature's Judgment, which does for 3 energy, does 120, but if you discard all the energy, lets you do 60, so 180. Choice Band bumps up to 210, Kukui bumps up to 230. With just the Choice Band and the extra damage you're discarding, you're one-shotting a lot of things in the format. If not, you're two-shotting, which is perfectly fine in the current format. Tapu Bulu is really nice because it has no weakness. It has 3 retreat, though, which is pretty bad. Which makes it, I think, give it a pretty tough matchup against Espeon Garb, but it has a really nice matchup against Drampa Garb because it's able to one-shot a Drampa with Nature's Judgment. Also, the GX attack's not bad for 150. It heals all the damage off of Bulu. This deck's also really good because it has access to Vikavolt. It lets you attach a Grass and a Lightning energy from your deck to your Pokemon any way that you like. So Vikavolt lets you thin your deck out of your energy, lets you draw into your items and supporters. You play things like Rare Candy to accelerate the evolutions for your Vikavolts. Some people have been playing Drampa in there just to deal with the Espeon Guard matchup and just discard special energy off their opponent, or just discard special energy in general. You play things like Energy Recycler your energy in case when you discard them. And you have, your normal Bridget, Lysander, and all the other good stuff. This deck has a really good matchup against things like I said, Drampa. It has a really good matchup against most things across the board. Its biggest weakness, though, is definitely Metagross. Metagross with the Choice Band does one-shot Bulu. Espeon does 60 with the Espeon with a Choice Band, and Psychic will one-shot a fully loaded Bulu. So, kind of not impossible to win with this deck, but I think it'll take a very skilled pilot of this deck to win Nationals with this deck. I don't think Bulu is necessarily a bad choice, but I definitely think it's going to be someone who's going to have to play it a lot and have a lot of games underneath their belt with that deck. Why did it go do Bulu first? Wait a minute. What the heck? Oh, because I did Nat. Oops. Oh, Nada. Next up, we got Alolan Ninetales. Now, when I say Alolan Ninetales, I mean it could be a version like this, a Water Box variant, or a Decidueye Ninetales variant, both which are very good. I honestly feel like a Ninetales Water Box variant might be a better choice, just because then you can use things like Glaceon. With every deck being such a heavy evolution-based deck, Crystal Ray will probably be a really strong attack to be using. Combine that with a Choice Band, you're hitting for 100, and you could it's going to force your opponent to play things like Lysander to get around it. But then you just keep bringing it back up, and they keep having a Lysander, wasting their supports for their turn. Eventually, you can burn them out of VS Seekers or Lysanders to get around it. It plays Ninetales, though, of course, does the 50 damage. Lets you snipe things off of benches. Blizzard Edge does for 160, which is really nice. Plus, you have Choice Band 190. You're taking a lot of one-shots on a lot of things. Against Espeon Garb, though, it's a little bit rough because Espeon has 200 HP. So you're going to have to combine it with Kukui to one-shot an Espeon. But you have things like Koko to soften up your opponent's Pokemon, so that way that does not become really an issue. As well as just using Ice Blade, here and there when you're setting up for the Blizzard Edge to soften up those Pokemon and then take knockouts with the Blizzard Edge. Of course, it runs things like Aqua Patch to counteract Blizzard Edge's effect of discarding 2 energy from it. Most decks have been playing Octillery as a slow, consistent draw source, as well as one Shaman. I feel like though nowadays you can cut the Shaman out. If I were to play this deck, I'd probably cut the Shaman out for a Oricorio as a really good tech card against Vespiquen. Moving on though, we have Metagross, Quad Metagross, really a deck that was possibly was considered to be the strongest deck in the format until people started taking against it. Metagross being probably, I think, one of the GXs that was heavily slept on at the start of the Guardians Racing format. If I was included in that boat, I feel like that if Metagross could have made a splash in Seattle, if people had realized how slow the meta was going to move. But at the same time, the meta hadn't quite slowed down quite yet, and people who played Drampa Guard in Seattle took heavily advantage of that. Metagross back then probably would not have had the same showing, it would probably not have done as well in Seattle as it did in later regionals, as Christian Mansky took this list and came in second with it, I believe, at Madison, if I'm not mistaken. Metagross is really good because it has a Geotech system ability that lets us attach a Psychic or Synergy from your discard pile into your active Pokemon. So if you have 3 Metagross on board, you attach 3 energy from your discard pile to Metagross, use Giga Hammer. Giga Hammer has the downside of not being able to use the Giga Hammer on your next turn, but it's not a problem because you have 3 energy on Metagross attack. You retreat that 3 energy, bring up a new Metagross, reattach the energy with Geotech, and Giga Hammer again for 150. 180 with Choice Band, 210 with 200 with Kukui, 210 with Delmise. Pretty strong move, plus algorithm is if your opponent can't and you have an algorithm, you pretty much just auto win. The deck also does take advantage of low and Vulpix to thin the deck of Pokemon, so that way you can draw into your other supporters and such of. It does also take the advantage of playing second energy to use Tapu Lele GX, Tapu Cure GX to heal off your bench Pokemon. Also plays things like Max Potion to fully heal out those Metagrosses. It makes Metagross into an absolute tank, and it's extremely hard to take down, and people have started to tech against it. This is personally one of my favorite decks. This is my favorite deck to come out in Guardians Rising. It's a deck I love playing. I play it a lot. It's just people have gotten smart and started tech against it. But I definitely think it has a strong potential to do well at Nationals this year. Next up, we have Deciplume. It's a deck that stopped seeing a lot of play, but I feel like it can make a comeback just because of the fact that even though people are no longer playing it, it can still make a comeback. Why is there... Okay, this is an old list. But you guys get the idea. Decidueye, Vileplume. Just item locking in general is still really good. People are used to playing against it now, so they know how the deck runs. They know how to beat it. But I feel like under the right pilot, Decidueye Plume can make a huge comeback. Things like Tapu Koko as being the start off with an attacker to soften up your opponent's Pokemon, plus Feather Arrows, and using Tapu Lele as your main attacker are really strong in this deck. You can, if you play the Rainbow Energy variant, you can slide things like Glaceon, Jolteon, make a Walls deck. I feel like people didn't play enough. People haven't experimented enough with Malo yet in this deck to add up to the consistency, because Decidueye Vileplume previously had the problem of either going off or breaking on itself. But I feel like it's definitely a deck that you should be willing. You should be prepared to face, because it is probably still one of the stronger decks in the format. It hasn't really seen great success lately, but like I said, that's mostly because people know how to play against it now. I feel like if the right pilot took it, it could do very well. You guys will notice I keep saying that if the right pilot takes it, that's because we are in a heavily diverse format currently right now, and it's really healthy for the game, and I like it. There's not really a best deck format. Everything has a counter, and that's really nice for the game currently right now. Next up, we got Drampa Garb, the thing that took Seattle by storm, and people were saying, oh my god, this deck's broke, this card's broken, this card's broken, ban it, ban it, ban it. It's not broken, guys. It's just, play, 20 items in your deck and you're fine. Drampa Garb takes advantage of things like Drampa. The Berserk attack it's easily taken advantage of with things like the Team Magma Secret Base to put damage onto your own Pokemon, and then using Trash Lance late game to close out the game. Some people have actually are still playing Tauros or not playing Tauros. It just depends. If they play 3 Leles, there's the list that one Seattle played an Azelf to spread damage onto your opponent's Pokemon as like a late game closer outer. I feel like now dropping this for a Supernatural Dance or a Courier would be better to counter against Vespiquen. but you can also grab it. You can also use things like Ninja Boy to switch things in and out. A lot of decks are still playing Sudowoodo for the Mega Ray counter, even though Mega Ray has not really seen a strong showing since Guardians Rising has came out, but also as a counter to Lycanroc Raichu, which is a deck that I feel like people are sleeping on. You guys will notice it's not in my list of decks on here, but we will be talking about it a little bit. Next up, we got Drampa Zoroark. Again, a really strong deck, very techable. A lot of people actually have started to drop cards, have dropped like the Coco promo, and as well as things like what's the other card they dropped? Some people aren't playing Team Magma Secret Base either. They're going for like a Rainbow Energy style of build, and just using that to activate Drampa, as well as using Flareon to tech against Bulu and Metagross. Those are some of the big techs. But Zoroark Break has a foul play ability for the foul play attack for a single Dark Energy. Lets you choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks, and you get to use them for a single Dark Energy. So if your opponent has a Drampa GX out, you can use Berserk for a single energy. If your opponent has Tapu Lele out, you can hit it back with Energy Drive. There's just a lot of cases where Zoroark Break can really hurt, but also the main thing is using Zoroark. Regular Zoroark's Mind Jack attack, which does 30 damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So if they have a bench of 5, you're doing 160, 190 to Choice Band, 210 with Kakui, and you're only giving up 1 prize. So yes, I think Drampa Zoroark is another deck to keep a lookout for. It's been showing with great success as of late. Next thing up is what's called the second best deck in the format. I did a video on this deck yesterday, guys. It's pretty good. It has, it uses Espeon GX as the main attacker, forcing your opponent to fight through that confusion or retreat out in order to attack you. And grab some water here before I choke with my own breath. Forcing your opponent to fight through that confusion or waste energy retreating in and out in order to deal with that confusion. And Psychic's a really good attack because a lot of things in the format require 2 or 3 energy to attack. Psychic does a really good job at counteracting that. It plays Trash Lane's Garbodor to close out the game, and then Garbotoxin Garbodor as a tech against things like Greninja, and Metagross also hurts this. Bulu Vikavolt is hurt by this. Any deck that's relying on ability to get going, Garbotoxin Garbodor can just stop it in its tracks, and they have to force themselves to Field Blower it off. A lot of lists are playing one Flareon as a counter to Bulu Vikavolt and as a counter to Metagross. It does play 4 Float Stones though to help with that Garbotoxin Garbodor always being live. Next up we got is Greninja. Greninja I think is probably the weakest deck on this list, just because while Greninja has always been a good deck, I feel like that it's probably the most palette dependent out of all the decks, playing those giant water shurikens to maximize your damage and playing ahead. Additions such as Field Blower. Did I not put a Field Blower in this list? I did not. Okay, so you would drop something for a Field Blower, but cards like Field Blower had definitely improved the consistency of this deck and stopped things like Garbotoxin Garbodor from screwing up your day. It still plays things. Some people have dropped the Talonflames completely and just went for a straight 4/4 line. I'm personally not a fan of that list. But Greninja is probably one of those decks that will probably always be around, at least until rotation, because of it will lose things like Silent Lab and Dive Ball. Next up, we have Vespiquen, probably one of the most resilient decks, and one of the decks that will always exist until it gets rotated out in August or September. Just because Vespiquen is highly adaptable to the meta, because all it needs to do is play Pokemon that help counter the meta, such as playing things like Vaporeon with Eevee to counter fire decks, Flareon to counter steel and grass decks, even playing things like Klefki to stop damage from Mega Pokemon, and then also using things like Zoroark to counter Skyfield decks, known for draw power as well as increasing your own Vespiquen's attacks. And then also Vespiquen being a 1-price attacker and only requiring a DCE to attack, while being able to defend your deck with things like Acrobike, Professor Sycamore to get your Pokemon into the discard pile quickly. It's going to be one of those decks to watch out for, and a lot of people have teched against it by either playing Karen or Oricorio to stop their damage output. And then finally, the last deck that we're going to talk about is a deck that's been good since it came out, and you can never forget about it, is Volcanion. Now, this is probably one of the more recent lists, running 4 Volcanion EX and 3 baby Volcanions, along with Turtonator, to accelerate your energy, discarding your energy and using it to using your baby Volcanion to power up your Volcanion EX as well as your Turtonator. Using Evolution Starmie for the Space Beacon ability, which lets you discard a card from your hand and put 2 basic energy cards from your discard into your hand to recycle for steam ups instead of playing things like Energy Retrieval, along with things like Brooklyn Hill to get your bait, to get things like your Staryu and your Volcanions onto your bench. Things like, and also play 2 switches in an Olympia to switch in and out, so that way their Volcanic Heat can attack. Volcanic Heat with 4 steam ups will go 130, 160, 190, 220, 250 with the Choice Band. You are knocking out everything in the format when all the stars align. Volcanion's not a deck to sleep on. It will be good. Honestly, I think Volcanion is again going to be one of those decks that's going to be really good for a really long time as a fire poke, being one of the main fire decks. Now other decks to keep a lookout for that I did not make lists for just because I think they're a little out there is Zygarde EX with Mew, letting you do things like use Land Pulse for 20 and hit things for weakness of our Psychic types. Zygarde being probably one of the most viable fighting deck that we currently have, with things like Turbo Dark still being around. And then again, another deck to probably watch out for that I feel like is probably the weakest on this list is Darkrai EX with a Dark Pulse ability, whether that's the Dragon's Wish variant or the straight up 15 energy Turbo Dark with the XP shares and Max Elixirs to accelerate the energy. Both variants have been performing well as of late. But I feel like Turbo Dark is just at the end of its potential in the current format. Another deck that I feel like could make a comeback, could start maybe see some play, is possibly Passimian Mew. The problem is Passimian Mew only has only 2 good matchups currently, and that's against Drampa Garb and Espeon Garb. So unless you're playing against one of those 2 decks, I don't really see this deck really performing well. I think it has too many bad matchups across the board for it to be good against everything else, but as a rogue deck it might see some potential. I think it could make day 2 possibly. Another deck that a lot of people think we'll see a lot of plays, Gyarados. I'll just type in Magikarp. I know how to spell Magikarp. Just kidding, I don't. Magikarp. Wow, okay. You guys should all just see how I find cards now. So we're gonna go Water type, Ancient Origins, there. Get Full Retaliation Gyarados. A lot of people are saying this deck is still really strong. I agree that it's still really strong, but I feel like things like Ninetales Decidueye, Tapu Koko Promo, all kind of make this deck kind of no longer a reality, just because of it relying on Magikarp, damaged Magikarp being on your bench with only 10 HP left. Yeah, I just don't really see this deck really performing as well as it used to. Now that we have things like Tapu Koko Promo, Decidueye, and Ninetales all able to easily hit the bench and knock it out. Some tech cards that I think that that a lot of people should be considering for their builds for whatever deck they're playing is fitting in Oricorio. Oh, not that one. This Oricorio right here, the Supernatural Dance. Really good against the Vespiquen matchup. Just being able to spread damage counters late game onto your opponent's Combees and Vespiquens. Oftentimes they'll have 20 plus Pokemon in their great discard pile, which is enough to take out 2 Vespiquens and really slow them down, or really just shut them down. Another card that a lot of people are still playing is Sudowoodo from Guardians Rising. Leaving your opponent's bench down to 4 stops any Skyfield deck Also, just shutting off one's bench space usually means you shut off their second Lele, because a lot of decks will bridge it and will start off with a Pokemon active Lele for bridge it for 3 Pokemon. You drop down that Sudowoodo, they can't play any more bench Pokemon, slows them down dead in their tracks. Another thing to definitely consider is Flareon. Flareon from Ancient Origins, really good at countering Metagross, as well as Bulu Vikavolt. Fire weakness is still really strong, really prevalent, and being able to take advantage of that. If you're playing any Stage 1 deck, you're definitely playing Flareon, as well as I would venture to even considering playing Vaporeon in your deck to deal with the Volcanion matchup. As far as trainer cards go, I think the best one probably to consider would be Karen. It's a really good Vespiquen matchup. The only deck that really plays this though is Metagross. Is there anything else I could think of? Oh yeah, another card to consider playing, especially if your deck does not already play a field spell, which I can only really think of one, is Chaos Tower. Stopping your Pokemon from being confused, especially when there's Espeon is so rampant, I think is really good right now. Another possible card that you consider playing is Pokemon Center Lady. Pokemon Center Lady. What the heck? Pokemon Center Lady, removing special conditions and healing 60 damage is still really good. I definitely think this is a card that you should definitely consider playing as a one of in a lot of decks. That 60 damage could really will screw with your opponent's math in most matchups, as well as healing off things like Confusion. It's really good. Confusion being the only special condition right now that is really prevalent. No decks with Burner really floating around, or Sleep, or even Paralyze. So that's definitely something worth consider keeping in your deck, as well as maybe even a Team Flare Grunt. Just to get rid of your opponent's DCEs. So in short, guys, this is my those 10 decks that I went over at the start of the video. Let me bring them back up, that list up again real quick. These 10 decks right here, I believe, have probably the strongest potential to do well at Nationals this year. Until we get Burning Shadows, these are probably the decks that we'll see in format. I believe, though, there will be a giant percentage of the top decks being Drampa Garb or Espeon Garb, and then followed by everything else. So let me know what you guys think of the comment section down below. Actually, don't let me know what you guys think. Let me know which deck you think, what deck is gonna have the highest representation on day 2 of Nationals this year. Until next time, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, peace out. Stop hammering me. Actually, you keep playing hammers. Go ahead. 2